Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm ready. Good morning. Oh, this is already the chat. Let me check the chat. Oh, so let's see. Vanessa, ciao. Good morning. Nicole, good morning. Good morning. Could someone share the homework folder link with me? I will. Good morning. I can see it. Okay, good morning. So, the link for homeworks is this is very simple. You should find it in older videos, but it is 3ds homework Monday. It's not that simple. 3ds Wednesday, Monday, this one. So if you need it, should be this one. Let me check if it is true. I will open it for you. Oh yes, it is this one. Who has created 2 homework 8 folders? Should be called homework 9. Anyway, fixed. Okay, so the link is there if you need it. Good morning. And today we have to see, we have to continue things related to materials. So let me check also here the pen. Perfect. So first of all, beside this simple question, do you have any additional 3ds Max question that you want to ask me? Is there anything you need to ask? Doubts? I mean, I followed students who have problems with Material Editor, but I discovered one, especially at the end. I think it's something that I can fix. But if you have problems, Material Editor, if it works, don't work, I will know how much we got for the meter. Oh, what a ask me, send me an email, because I can't share grades on YouTube. So if you ask me, I will send you then an email. Okay? So if you have no questions about material or material editor, and let's start into this new episode of working with materials. And what we have to do today is we have to understand how to create our own materials. And this is something that is very interesting, but it involves a lot of aspects of knowing a material. Let me also place the software like this, and chat in here. Perfect. Okay, here we have a folder, and I will show you later on why we need it. Okay, so let's see. Material Editor, Part 2. Um, First of all, when you start a new file, always check by going to Rendering, Render Setup, that your render parameters are these. For example, someone asked if you can use other render engines, like, one of the most popular is V-Ray. Use it if you want. It doesn't really change anything, but if you want to use V-Ray during your project or even during the class, the only thing you have to do is these parameters, so the render setup, must be set by clicking this menu. It has to be set as V-Ray. As you can see, I have not V-Ray because I don't use it, because I honestly don't like it either. For example, I like Corona Renderer. So when you want to try to and you have installed render engines, the only thing that you have to do to enable them is going to Render Setup. Be sure the target is production rendering mode, and then you have to go to Renderer and select a render engine that you want to use. The one that I use, ART, is especially because it is already in 3ds Max, so you don't need any additional plugin. You don't have to buy anything, and so on and so on. So someone says, is Corona Render better than V-Ray? It's like saying, is Canon better than Nikon? It is just a matter of personal preferences. I find myself better in working with Corona. People find V-Ray better than Corona. This is just my personal feedback, that I don't like V-Ray, because for me it is just too slow, and I find myself working better with Corona, but with no particular reason. So you should use whatever tool you want, and at the end of the day, they make render. Good morning. Good morning. So, with this being said, let's go to the Material Editor. Another thing that someone asked is this. If you had previous experience in 3ds Max, Slate Material Editor, the one that we use, may look something completely new and complex, tricky, and so on and so on. It is not, technically, but if you had previous good morning. In the meantime, someone else joined. Oh, good morning. So if you had previous experience in 3ds Max, you may have seen that your material editor was slightly different. And this is still available, because if we go to the Slate material editor, we click Modes, and we click Compact Material Editor. Compact Material Editor is something that simply looks like this. It is the way that people used to create materials in 3ds Max since 3ds Max have been released. But this way to work with materials has a lot of limits. And this is still there as a tool, because there are people who are not learning new elements in 3ds Max, so they just want their own old-fashioned interface. So I don't explain it because it is just old and out of date. So this is why I explain Slate Material Editor. And let's see now how to create a material. First of all, one thing that you need to learn that is extremely important is, let me make a sketch in order to let you understand how the material editor works. That is, oops, sorry, no, nothing. I just heard a noise here. Let me tell you how the material editor works. When we want to, we have seen last week that when we want to use a material that has been already created, so a material that is into the library, what we have to do is only we need to browse our material library, and then we have to select the material that we want. We have to drag it here, and main reason why we do this is simply because we want technically slightly editing our material, because for our material we have to click first show shaded material in viewport, so we enable its preview, and then let's create a box, and then by using this node in here we apply the material to our object, and that's it. Okay, so we do this, let's say, I don't know, another one, flooring, wood, this one, we drag and drop it, we select the preview, we apply, boom, and we have our beautiful material. For a few of these materials you may find some error messages, and there is nothing that you can do about it, because those materials are not fully compatible with ART renderer. But let's see this. You can see that in our material editor, so let's focus now on the material editor and nothing else. So what we can see is this. Look, material itself, so the one that we apply to the object, is this thing here. So nothing. This one. So this is the material itself, and this is the material, okay? And then attached to the material we have these elements here. First thing that you can notice is that material is recognizable because it has a bright blue color next to its name. And then these other, let's call them things for now, but these things that are attached to a material, that are called maps, they have a green color code. And these basically let you start understanding how a material is structured. So, which is the behind the scene of a material. That is this. Look, I will just make a sketch. But basically it happens that a material is made in this way. You have a blank neutral material, and the material is something that basically contains all available parameters that the aspect of an object can manage. So a parameter can be the color, a parameter can be if your object is glossy or if it is matte. Another parameter can be if an object is transparent or if it is opaque, if an object is bumpy or if it is perfectly smooth, and so on and so on. And then there may be additional parameters. So a material basically has this behavior. On the left, it has a dot next to each available parameter. And on the right, it has a bigger dot. What are these dots is this? In the one on the right, this is the out. So basically, when I want to connect a material to an object, I left click here and I drag the material to my object. But on the left, instead, these dots are input. So what I can do basically is I can use maps, and we will make these very simple. So instead of maps, we can quickly call pictures. So what I can do, I can drag a picture inside my material editor. And the picture itself will have a dot in here, and if certain images have, they can have dots even here because they can be layered, but we won't go till this stage. So we will just focus on this. So basically what happens is that this is the out of our picture, and if we want to tell 3ds Max that this picture must be used to control a certain parameter, we have simply to connect it with the parameter that we want. A material can have as many pictures as many parameters it has. So let's say we can have another picture here, another picture there, and let's say one picture manages a certain parameter, another picture will manage another parameter, another picture another parameter, as well as same picture can be used to manage more parameters. So this is the way that the slate material works. We have our neutral starting material, then we have our pictures that we have to use in order to control parameters, and then we have to apply the material itself to our object. So now let's see how to do this in 3ds Max, because this is the concept. In 3ds Max, what we have to do is simply this. In order to start our material, as I shown you in the sketch before, we need to have a neutral blank starting material that will contain all pictures that we want to use. And materials that are used to start new materials from scratch are those that you find at the very beginning of your material map browser. So all of these materials listed under this simple folder that again is just called materials they are just neutral, blank materials without any picture, without any texture. Most of them are mainly gray, but each of them has a slightly different amount of parameters. The way that I want to teach you how to make a material is very specific, and I want to explain a way to create materials that has these goals. First of all, it has to be a way that allows you to create 100% of materials that you want. So it has to be a way of creating materials that has no limits in the creativity, in the creation process. And this is first. But second aspect, that is why I want to explain a certain way to make material, is that I want to explain a way to create materials that is not depending on render engine. What it means this? It means that certain materials, like all of these, in 3ds Max can be used only with ART renderer. While I want to show you, even if at the beginning it may look a little bit more complex, I want to show you this materials here. And the specific one that I want to show you is called physical material. This is simply because physical material works exactly like all other render engines material. So what it means is that if you learn how to set a physical material, then it doesn't matter if you use V-Ray, Corona, Arnold renderer, Maxwell renderer, Lumion or Octane renderer. There are billions of choices, but if you learn how to use physical material, you won't have any problem in using any other render engine. So we will use this particular material. And it works in this simple way. Look, first of all, I need to drag and drop this material from the material map browser inside my material editor. And you will see that physical material at the very beginning is a little bit complex because it has a lot of dots. And it also means that it has a lot of materials. A lot of parameters to manage the material. And this is technically good because it means that we can do a lot of different adjustments in our material. Luckily, we won't explain and go in depth in each single parameter. We will explain more important parameters to start using it in 3ds Max. And these parameters will be here. We will see, let me simply zoom in. Perfect. We will see, and I don't know if we will be able to see them all today. I will do my best. But we will see. Base color map. This parameter here. We will, as a map, because then there are a few things that we have to do. Then we will see another map that is called bump. Then we will see another map that is called cutout. But there are some parameters, so we will see these three as maps, so as parameters that can be edited with pictures. But there are some parameters instead that must be managed by changing numbers, so by changing the amount of a certain effect. In order to find them, what we have to do is we have to select the material. But most important, with our mouse, we have to place our mouse here and we have to make a double click like this. Look. When we make a double click, we can see that next to our material there is, and I won't do it entirely, but there is this dashed boundary. This simply is a way that 3ds Max uses to tell that now parameters that you see listed here are parameters of this particular material. Okay? And in addition to these three parameters called base color map, bump map, and cutout map, from parameters we need to explain a few more numbers. That will be, we have to see roughness, metalness, we have to see in transparency, and if we have time enough, I will show you also emission. Believe it or not, by knowing these 7 aspects of a material, you can create whatever kind of material you have in mind. And we need just to understand what they do, because starting from the base color that is also written here, what we can do is this. Look, and I will just try to not move the interface so that these highlights remain here. First of all, we have base color. Base color simply means which is main color of our material. And this is something that can be easily managed by clicking this rectangle here, and we can choose, if our material has just a plain color, we can choose by clicking that rectangle which continuous color we want to apply to that specific material. Okay? And we will see that our material from gray, it will be turned into green. And this is just to start. Second thing is, not all materials have a continuous color. Most of visible materials instead have a texture. So they have a pattern that is repeated all along the surface. And you can think about wooden fibers, you can think about bricks, stones, tiles, and stuff like that. This is important because, according to this simple concept, we need to understand that another way to manage base color can be by using a picture instead of a color. And look, I have previously downloaded in this tiny folder, I have just downloaded 3 pictures. You can start using whatever picture you want, it doesn't really matter. But just to show you, these are pictures that I have downloaded. These kind of pictures are called textures. So they are images that have no perspective, so they are flattened. They can be repeated. So I have downloaded this one. I have downloaded this one, even if it has a watermark in here. I have downloaded this other picture. Okay. And if you want to download pictures by yourself, the only thing that you need to use is you have to use Google. And it is extremely important what you write when you use Google. So look, I will do this in real time for you, even if it is already written, it's okay. And what is important is this. There are just 2 keywords that you have always to use when you look for a certain material. And these 2 keywords are texture and next one is seamless. What it means? Look, if you are in need of creating wood as a material, so you want to find wooden fiber pictures, that's fine. You look for wood, but look, if I just click wood, I will find too many results, and maybe results that I don't need, like this one, like these, like these, this picture here that for sure I don't need, and so on and so on. So I need to filter my search by adding the word texture. And you will see that by adding texture, I start having results that are without perspective. They are all flattened pictures. Okay? But a texture means that I have a certain image, and according to the size of my object, this image can be repeated more than once. And not all textures are the same. For example, this texture here is a texture that when it will be repeated, so when I will see 2 or 3 times same image, I will clearly see these big black edges repeated, like this one. This is something that has a radial shape, so when I will see it repeated, I will clearly see where my left edge ends and where my right edge begins. So, last keyword that I should always add when I look for material is the word that is seamless. Seamless textures are those images that are created in a certain way that when you see 2 of them attached, and no, doesn't matter from which edge you see them attached, but they look just a continuous, constant pattern, and they won't show you horrible seam lines. So, after making this search, what you have to do to use your image is that you have just to save the image on your computer. So you really need to download the picture in order to be able to use it in 3ds Max. So I just save my picture. Let's say this is wood, okay, and I will save it. 3ds Max can handle a lot of picture formats. They can be JPEG, PNG, bitmap, TIFF, OpenEXR, Photoshop, layers as well, whatever. But it is easier and just quicker to use JPEG, even if for those super professional 3ds Max users, sometimes they can say that JPEG can have just little less of sharpness. But you have downloaded images that you want to use, okay? So let me show you how beautiful and how simple is to use the Slate material editor to create your own material. Simply because once that you have your folder with your picture, the entire method of creating materials is just by using drag and drop. So look, first thing that I will do is I open the folder where I have my images, and what I have to do is simply I drag and drop the image from the folder to the material editor. And you can see into the preview that now I have my wooden picture here. What I have to do is, and you can do it before or after, doesn't really matter, but what I have to do is I have to double click in my picture, and in order to start having a good looking material that can be always, remember, fixed with UVWMap, but to start having a good realistic aspect of my material, what I have to do is I have to double click my bitmap, and I need simply to adjust the size of my, so unfortunately I will delete these, but the only thing that I have to do in my picture is I double click it so that I open parameters of the picture, and believe it or not, the only thing you have to do is here. You can forget all of these additional parameters for now and for many years. So you can see that my picture for 3ds Max is 2.54 by 2.54 centimeters, large and long and large. So I have to adjust it by knowing that this is a piece of wood, so for sure in reality it can't be just as small, and I have to imagine. So I will think that, I don't know, this dimension here maybe is 10 centimeters, and in proportions, if this is 10, this is twice, let's say this would be 20 centimeters. Perfect. Once that I imagine these, also because everything can be fixed with UVWMap, So it was 10 centimeters high, 20 centimeters large. When I double click on my bitmap, I have to set width as 20 centimeters, height 10 centimeters. I'm so happy about my map now that I will do this. Look. First of all, you can see that right now there is no connection between this map and my material. There are no wires. But let's see this. I want to apply my green material to my box, so I will drag and drop the connection here. And this works. It is not that exciting because this is just a green material, so it is fine for now. But then, see this. What I will do now is I will also connect this map, so this information, to the parameter that manages the color. And that parameter is called base color. So, if I link this image with the base color, it happens that you can see the preview of my material in the material editor changing, and it will look like wood. You can still see that the box looks green into the viewport, because even with our own materials, we have to select the material and we need to click show shaded material. So we have to enable the preview of our material and then look here. You have made your first gorgeous looking wood material by yourself. Okay? Till here? So the only thing that I've done till here, beside a big introduction, is that I have dragged and dropped a physical material from the library to the editor. I have dragged and dropped a picture that I have downloaded into the material editor, and I have connected the picture to my parameter called base color. Okay? Does it work? Let me also check one plug in here. Sorry if you hear some noise. Just wanted to see if my pen works, and it doesn't. So till now, does it work or not? Oh, perfect. And if it works, because the more times we see, the better it will be, let's just make another example too. And I want to take the one with tiles. Let me see which picture is. This is a little bit too much. This one. Okay, let's use this one. So look, imagine that I change my mind. I don't want any more wood in my material. I just want tiles. So I will simply select this map from the material editor, and I will hit delete from my keyboard, and I will just remove the picture from the material editor. I'm not deleting the picture from my folder, just from the material editor. And I simply drag and drop another one, that is the one that has tiles. And look, in here, if I open the picture, I can also better understand which is the size that I should use. And I want to show you this particular image simply because it should have more precise dimensions that we can not just guess, but we need to think about how tiles are made. So look, a tile in general is something that is a square, and this is one tile of this picture, and a tile is maybe pink. It is in general 30 centimeters by 30 centimeters. So what we need to think here is this. But wait a second. We have, in our picture, we have one tile here. So this would be 30 centimeters. But in the same picture, there is another tile. So this is 30. But then we have a tile that is cut in here and another tile that is cut in here. But basically this edge matches this edge. So we have basically just another tile. So we have something like, let's say, 20 centimeters here, 10 centimeters. So what it means is that the width in reality of this picture will be 90 centimeters. And because this is a square, even from here to here, the height will be 90 centimeters. So, after making these simple thoughts about our picture, what I have to do is only I drag and drop the image here. I double click onto the image and I set that the size will be 90 centimeters for the width, 90 centimeters for the height. I connect the picture to the right parameter, that is the one that is called base color. And also because my preview was already enabled, I see in real time the result of using this picture instead of wood. Okay? And you can see that my beautiful seamless texture is correctly applied to my box. If you, and you have not to worry, but if you are not that sure if this may be 90, 85, 77, 66, and 91, and so on, this is just to have an overall idea on how big your picture should be. But then, just remember, with the UVW map modifier, like we have made last week, we apply the UVW map, we set as a box, we open the gizmo, and we can always move our material, rotate our material, or scale it. Okay? So, this method to adjust the size is just to have a good, precise, overall fine starting size, but then we are still able, even if we are making our material by ourselves, we are still able to manipulate coordinates of the material as we want. Okay? till here? Let me know. It works. It doesn't. Oh, perfect! I mean, I'm so happy that it works. Because this is technically the it is easier part of making materials, and the more we dive in, the slightly more tricky material will become. And for example, we need to see this now. Look, there are some aspects of our material that cannot be just managed with a map. So before showing you other maps that are here, I need to show you some parameters of our object, of our material. And most of these are effects that you will see only when you will render your beautiful object. So what I want to do is just this. Look, I want to make something more in my scene. So I will make another box. I will put, I don't know, a sphere in here. Perfect. And what I want to do now is I will click this button here. Look. It's a little bit too dark. This button here. This button is the button to render your image. And what render means is basically that it translates all of your 3ds informations into a picture. So, let's see this. If I click render, I will see this final result. There is a picture. So in here I can't change the perspective anymore. If I need, I can just save these from here as picture. But this is my first rendering. And you can notice something extremely important. That is, first of all, there is just a weird light, but it's okay for now. We have to talk about light before going there. But what you can see is that your box is not just a box with tiles. It is also reflecting what is placed next to it. And this is happening for a precise material parameter that we need to study. So look, to change material parameters, we have to double click on our material, so on the blue thing here. And there are these two parameters that work together. One is called roughness, one is called metalness. Roughness sets the amount of how smooth and reflective our material is. But roughness means roughness means roughness. So roughness 0 means that our material is highly polished, basically, so highly reflective. The more we increase roughness, the less reflective our material will be. For example, if I make roughness 1, means that our material won't reflect anything. And we can check this, unfortunately, not into the viewport, but we need to check it by rendering our image. And now you can notice that on these faces of my terrible looking box, there is no more the reflection of the sphere and the reflection of the floor. So just as a reference, this is roughness 1. Or let's see if I can change the angle from here. Let's see if it is more visible. Yes, maybe this angle is better. So just look. I render here, and I can see no reflections at all on my material. Because roughness is 1, so my material is pretty rough, like unfinished. But if I decrease roughness, and I will make the exaggerate example by putting this parameter back to 0, if I render same exact image, it looks the same from here. No, how sad is that? So let's change the corner again. This is a bit more visible. But you will, and here even more. But you will start viewing again reflections of your object, of your environment on your material. This is first number that we have to deal with. It is called roughness. So roughness 0. My material is super reflective. Look. Roughness 1, so super rough. I don't see any reflections on my material. But being reflective is not something that is true for all materials. In real life, there are two models of reflection, and one is called metallic reflection, one is called non-metallic reflection. So, if you want to make materials like plastic, materials like wood, floor that is slightly reflective, marble, all these kind of materials are non-metallic materials. So the parameter metalness for those materials should be very low, if not 0. But if you want to make materials like metal or glass, or certain kind of glass, and especially the mirror, I would say, in that case, you need to increase metalness. So, look, if I make something like this, I have roughness 0, metalness 1. It happens that when I render, my material is so reflective then it will act like a mirror. So, if I have objects in front of it, look, if I have objects in front of my material, in my material I will see all those reflections, because metalness 1, that is the maximum, and roughness 0, that means super reflective, is something that happens only in a mirror. Okay? We can even make more duplicates just to see them in our reflections. but I render and reflected to my material, I will see those phenomenal looking objects. Okay? With the combination of these two parameters, roughness and metalness, by combining them, so by increasing or decreasing these two as a couple of parameters, you can create completely different results. So, for example, if you want to make materials like chrome, they are very similar to a mirror, but not as reflective. You can make like metalness, I don't know, 0.9, roughness 0.3. Of course, it shouldn't be the texture, but this will be if you delete the texture and you make it gray, this kind of material will be like chrome. Or you can even a little bit less roughness, like 0.1. Exactly. So it is gray. You can still see that it is gray. It reflects things, but it is not as reflective as a mirror. Or you can make aluminum. So aluminum is gray. It is slightly reflective, but it is a metal. So metalness will be still high, but maybe roughness will be a lot more. So like 0.45. You render and you will achieve this particular result. That is, you have aluminum that is a little high on the rough size. It is still reflective and with a metal behavior. Or you can do something completely different, like you want to make your own plastic material. Why not? Let's make a beautiful red plastic. Plastic would be like very smooth, so roughness very close or even 0. But plastic has not a metallic behavior, so plastic will have metalness to 0. You render and you will make red plastic. Metalness 0 means that according to the angle between your point of view and the object, reflections will change their amount. So you can see that if I look basically from the front, my material looks like it is not reflective. But if I look at my material from the side, I can see that my material becomes more reflective. This behavior, so reflection that changes according to the angle, that is called non-metallic reflection. So plastic works like this, and wood, marble, they all work like this, as this kind of behavior of reflections. Okay? Till here? Let me know. Sorry. In the meantime. So let me know if you got the couple of parameters called metalness and roughness. Perfect. In some render engines, you can find that the word roughness can be called instead glossiness. So like V-Ray or Corona Render, you can find glossiness. It is the exact same parameter, it just works with opposite number. So if you call it roughness, 0 means super gloss, 1 means super rough. But if your parameter is called glossiness, 1 will be super glossy, so that 0 means super rough. Okay? Just to let you know that if you find other render engines, the behavior is the same, just the word can be different. If this is clear, then we have to go to a very super easy parameter instead, that is called transparency. So what transparency means is that if you have an object, so let's put the, let's just change point of view, exactly. If this object is not transparent, so if it is opaque, what happens is that when I render, I cannot see through the object, so I won't see what is behind. And if instead I want to see through, what I will do is simply I will increase level of transparency. And till transparency goes to 1, that means my material will be fully transparent. And if I render, this is how my material will look like. And we have to spend a second here for transparency because you can see this. Look, I zoom in and my transparency is giving me this weird look of spheres that are behind my box. And some of you may think that this is a reflection, while it is not. This is called refraction. And the only problem that we have here is that our transparent object right now is a very thick box. Transparency is a parameter that is in 3ds Max, it is physically correct. So if we want also to have a physically correct result, we need to set also dimensions of our objects that are correct for transparent material. So if we can't have like a big piece of glass that is like 60 or 30 centimeters thick, but glass is some millimeters thick, so look, without changing the angle of view, if I only select my box and I change its dimension and I make it thin, like a realistic piece of glass, let's say 0.8, this is already thick, 0.8 centimeters, it means 8 millimeters of glass, that is already thick. But now, see the difference. This was my previous render, the one that looks completely weird and wrong. But if instead I make my dimensions correct and I click render, even my transparent material will correctly work and it will look like glass. But transparent doesn't mean that it is only glass. There can be whatever kind of transparent material. The only thing that changes is the level of transparency. So if you are using like a water bottle that is transparent, but it is also green or blue and so on and so on, the only thing that changes is that that kind of material is simply not completely transparent. So I will make like 0.6 of transparency. I click render, and I will see that because my base color is red, by simply having not a full 100% transparent material, I can also make semi-transparent but colored materials. So I can make bottles, those like wine bottles that are those kind of deep green transparent glass. No problems. Just make here a very dark green color into the base color. Set it not 100% transparent, but 0.6, 0.7, render, and you will get the look of those kind of bottles. You can even make your glass darker here. Exactly. Okay. And you should also give a more precise shape, but this will be how to make like the glass for bottles of wine. Okay. And this is transparency. So believe it or not, it's not that hard. It is just something that works precisely if your objects are correctly done. So when you want to make something that is glass, remember that you have to make real thickness of the glass, because if not, it will look just weird, just wrong. Okay? Till here? Give me a feedback for transparency, if it is clear or not, so that we can go then in something that is unbelievably complex. Perfect. Fantastic. It is clear. Awesome. Perfect. So let's see something that is a little bit more complex. And in order to explain this parameter, I will simply create another material. Simply not for any reason, but just because I like that green thing, and I want instead to apply another material in my project, and I want to apply it to the sphere first. So, also to repeat, I want to create a new material. I always start from physical material, and I just drag and drop another material into my material editor. And each time that I make a new material, it always starts as gray without any particular parameter. But just remember, if you want to edit this material, be sure that you double click on it, because if not, parameters that you see listed here are about your previously selected material. And I want to apply this new material to my gorgeous sphere. Or, you know what? I want to apply this material to all of my spheres. So I first select them all, I then drag and drop my material, and I will set yes, assign to the entire selection. Okay. And now, perfect, all my spheres have this gray material applied. Right now, this material is nothing special. I will keep it gray. I will see if I have to change the color. I don't need to change anything specific into metalness, roughness, transparent, but I want to show you this very interesting parameter that is called bump map. Bump map is a parameter that gives your material a three-dimensional relief. This parameter works with the combination of two elements that are on the parameters of my material. I see bump map, and next to it there is a number that always starts as 0.3. But bump map itself requires a picture. So I should have a picture linked here. And right now, there is not. So what I should do is I should download a picture to be my three-dimensional relief. There is only one tricky aspect of using bump map. That is, and you can also see these if you Google for bump seamless texture, you will see that all these pictures are, except for this that is wrong, but you can see that the majority of pictures are in shades of gray. So they are pictures without any color. And bump map must be exactly like this. So I will explain first how they work, and then I will show you what to do with these. Let's use this one looks pretty nice. So I select this black and white picture. I save this image in my folder here. Okay, and now check this. I have to work exactly like before, so I drag and drop this black and white picture in my material editor. I double click the picture, and I have to change sizes of these. These, honestly, I have no idea how big they should be, so I quickly try 60 by 60 centimeters. That's fine. And I connect this picture, take care, with the bump map. Okay? Ready for this? Let's see if it immediately works. But if I render now, I should see that, maybe I zoom in a little bit. This should be enough. But look at the surface of my sphere. Maybe this is even too much. But you can see that now the surface of my sphere is not more just perfectly flat, while it has this particular three-dimensional pattern. So let me zoom out. Render again. And no, this is too far. Where is the sphere? Here. Exactly. But if I render, you will see that the surface of my sphere shows me these wrinkles, these three-dimensional pattern. This is what bump does. And there is a very precise connection between the fact that picture must be in black and white. There is simply this. Bump is a parameter that works by translating the black areas of my picture into areas that will be pushed down to the surface, from the surface of my object. Gray areas will be more or less where they are. White areas of my pictures instead will be slightly pulled out from the surface, from my starting surface. So at the end of the day, having a black and white image is something that 3ds Max translates into depth. So the darker the area is into the picture, the deeper will be the groove that bump creates in my material. Okay? So, let me show you this with another picture. Let's use this one. Why not? It has some watermarks. No, I don't like it. This one. This is even worse. This one. Perfect. So, look at this picture here. Even if it is a little bit small, but I save this picture. I just call it, no, I keep it like this. And I will repeat the process. So, I have this picture that I don't remember how it was called. Save picture as 0E55. Okay. So, look. I drag and drop it in my material editor. I double click to make it bigger, let's say 40 by 40. And then I want simply to use this instead of the previous one. So just connect these to the bump. Poof! And I remove this from the connection. But the material is already applied. I just have this new pattern. And if I render, I will see this very subtle effect. It is barely visible, and this is barely visible for two things. And I will show you why I've selected this picture that is pretty different than the previous one, because this is a lot more bright and this was a lot more dark. So, look. First of all, this is first different. This is brighter, that is darker. But also, as I said at the beginning of Bump, when you double click on your material, Bump doesn't only require a map, but Bump has also this number into material parameters that starts being 0.3. But if you see, and I will see if I can zoom in a little bit, but if you see that when you render, the bump effect is not that deep, is not that visible, You simply select your material, go to bump map parameters, that is a little bit below, and you increase this number. The higher this number is, the deeper and the more visible bump effect becomes. So now is a little bit exaggerated, but from 0.3, let's see what happens if I set it 1.2. So I render again, and you will start viewing a lot better those bumps given by my texture. I can also see that the texture is a little bit too big, so I double click it. Sorry, not the picture, the texture. And I make it, let's say, 10 by 10. I render again, and I can clearly see the effect of bump with this specific pattern. And also, if I need, I can go to my material, make, instead of 1.2, let's say 2, so even more exaggerate. I render again, and you can see that the trace left by my bump map becomes deeper and deeper. Okay, so let's see this question. So to make grass, for example, we take grass texture, make it black and white, add it to the bump, let me tell you, for grass, absolutely not. Because grass is something that is made with strands, so the bump works on the surface. Grass technically is something that is completely different, because grass requires a lot more steps, but for grass you need to wait a second till I explain last map that I want to show you today, that is cutout. While what you have to do for black and white instead is this. Look, and let's see if I find bricks that I have downloaded. Oh, perfect. Look at these bricks. These bricks are pretty interesting because from the picture itself, you can see that in reality, these bricks are a little bit more in front of their plaster layer. But if I just use bricks in 3ds Max and this picture has colors, what I have to do is I have to use bricks. I have to set, let's say, the size. I will just guess. 120 by 80. And I put these on the base color. Then I apply this to my sphere, to all of them. I double click the material and I set my visible preview. Now let's make it smaller. So double click on the picture and let's make it 40 by 15. That's better. What happens now is this. If I render this kind of material, I will have an horrible problem. That is, this material will have the look of bricks. But unfortunately, it will be very fake and it will look flat. What I have to do instead, I have to have on my material, I need to have two maps. So I need to have a black and white version of my bricks to have also the bump. In here you have two possibilities. One that I love the more, but it requires Photoshop. One that doesn't require Photoshop. So let me know, but it is a little bit too tricky. So, do you know how to use Photoshop a little bit or not? Let me know first. So do you want to see something that is too cool, but it involves Photoshop or not? Let me see comments. Oops. Someone say ears. Yes. Ears. Yes. Perfect. Yes, please. Why not? So, let's open Photoshop and show you something that is unbelievable with Photoshop. Something that is super, super handy in working with materials and making your own custom materials. So, look here. I will open this picture in Photoshop. Perfect. So, first thing that I need to understand is that this is my color map, and I need a black and white copy of this one that I will use as bump. But it has to be a copy. So first thing that I do is I save as, and I give the copy of my material just another name, and I will call it like bricks bump. In this way, I will be first sure that whatever I do, this just make it maximum, but whatever I do won't affect the file that is managing colors of my material, while it will be a copy of it. But I know two things for bump map. That is, bump map must be in black and white, so or in shades of gray, call it as you please. And also into the bump, whatever is dark is pushed, whatever is bright is pulled. So look at my picture. What I will do first is I will make a simple thing. That is, I go to image, adjustment, and I will use the option called desaturate to remove any information about colors and leaving only shades of gray, like this. Boom! But I can see something that is exactly what I don't want. That is, I can see that bricks are dark and the gaps in between is bright. If I use this picture as a bump map, I will see that I will have that bricks will be pushed inside the wall and plaster will be pulled outside the wall. I need to avoid this. I need to invert the situation. So maybe I go to image, adjustment, and I find something called invert the picture. So by using invert, it happens that whatever is bright becomes dark, whatever is dark becomes bright. So I do this simple step. And I have this great looking picture where, if I want, I can make something more. That is, I can go to image, adjustment. I can also change a little bit brightness and contrast to make even more different between, so I can increase the brightness and increase the contrast. And I click OK, so that I will have very bright bricks and they will be pulled out from my wall, and very dark gaps that will be pushed inside the wall. So I save this file and I don't close Photoshop. I just set it to invisible. But see this. I have this picture called Bricks Bump. I have to load it in my material editor, and I have to connect these with bump map. But I can't stop here because I have a certain dimension for my color picture. So let's just write 40 width, 20 height, just because it's easier to remember. So if I want my bump texture to match my color texture, I double click on the map and I also set same exact size, because it starts by being same exact picture. So even for the bump, I will set width 40, height 20. And if I render, I will have this extremely realistic aspect of my brick wall that is not only with the color of the wall itself, but even with the depth of the bricks and the gap in between. Okay? If I just show you, look, if I just delete the color, but I leave only the bump, if I render without color, the result is this, where I have all the gaps pushed in, and I have bricks that are pulled out from the surface of my wall. Okay? Yes? No? Tell me something. Very nice. But believe it or not, Photoshop and 3ds Max are like very best friends. They really work extremely well together. For example, you can do this. Look, can I just go back? Perfect. So see this. I'm back to my situation here, and only because I'm using JPEG files, take care, what I can do is I can also open again, not this one, sorry, it was this one, no, this one. So see this, only because I'm using JPEG files, I can keep them opened both in Photoshop and running in 3ds Max. And this is something unreal, because see what happens. My material is applied, my picture is linked to 3ds Max, but the same picture is also opened in Photoshop, So for example, if I do this, I go to image, adjustment, and then I change hue, saturation, and I do something like this. So make them weird, very weird. But let's say I want blue bricks in my project. I just make this adjustment. I click OK. I click Save into Photoshop. Okay, ready for this? Look, I just go to my 3ds Max and in real time I will see my picture updated without needing to reattach it, replace it, redoing anything. And this works only because I'm using JPEG files. Okay? So, let's do another thing. That is, let's see, I use Google to look for graffiti instead of graffiti. I go to image and let's see if I can, this one. Okay, I copy this image, I paste it in Photoshop, fantastic. Now this is too cool, but I simply change the blending mode from normal to multiply. Where is multiply? Here. Boom. And I have this phenomenal painting on my wall. And I have to remember it has to be a JPEG, so I have to flatten the image so there has to be no layers, and I save it again. And then I go to 3ds Max. Poof! And I will see that in my wall I have graffitis. Fantastic, isn't it? I can make my own also tag in here. I will make like with the red spray paint. I go to this wall and I say, how cool is this? Then I save, and whatever I do with Photoshop, open it at the same time that I have 3ds Max opened, boom, whenever I click save, I will see the result updated in real time. Okay? And this is also how to make how to adjust this work with PNG file, I think yes. JPEG files for sure. It doesn't work for sure with PSD, so with Photoshop file. It doesn't work with TIFF files. It doesn't work with PDF file. For JPEG, 100% fully working. PNG, I don't know. I should try first, but I've never been attracted by PNG pictures. I mean, in general, I use or JPEG or TIFF directly. But for JPEG, it works for sure. Okay? So, For today, I would like to stop here for two reasons. First of all, the time, and second of all, the amount of informations. And I don't want to explain other things in few seconds. While next week I will start introducing last parameter into material that is called cutout, and this will also solve the question probably that your classmate had about the grass. And I want to show you another parameter that is called emission of a material. That means a material can be glowing. But I will explain it next week because beside these two simple things, next week I want to start explaining you lights in 3ds Max. And especially emission is a material parameter that works only if there are lights as well into the scene. So explaining it now makes no sense. Okay? So if you have last quick question, ask me now. For this week, you have no particular homework rather than trying to make practice with materials, make your own maps. If you haven't finished your Rubik Cube homework, you can integrate with this new information, so you can make your own different plastics or with textures and so on and so on. Okay? Perfect. So, last 30 seconds to see if you have questions. If not, for today, it would be perfect like this. No! Can you quickly just say the difference between roughness and metals? Roughness and metalness. I understood metalness clearly. Oh, sorry, yes, I will also show you how to use 3D object. It was supposed to be today, but I completely forgot because I went all in materials. So roughness is very simple because look. Yes. No problem. So say this. Let's say I have a teapot. And I make... yes, I will explain one day. Don't worry, I will explain how to steal 3D objects from the web and use them in your project. Let me finish with this simple thing that is roughness and metalness. Look. Let's put a box in here. And let's say this. Roughness 0. Metalness 0. If I render, I will see that maybe I should put the box closer to the teapot. Here. Perfect. So I render, and in my teapot I can see some reflections. I can see a little bit of my reflected box, a little bit of my reflected floor. But if I change the angle between me and the object, the reflection will be more visible. So if I am on the side of the object, the reflection is more visible. If I place myself in front of the object, reflection will basically disappear. This is the behavior of metalness 0. Metalness is a behavior that metallic materials have, while if metalness is 0, you have plastic material behaviors. But if I increase metalness, let's say I will put it to 1, just to show you the exaggerate example. If I render, I will perfectly see the reflection of the environment on my teapot, and the amount of reflection, so how clear and sharp reflections are, doesn't change if I change the angle of view between me and the object, because metal reflection behavior is this one. So no matter where I look at my teapot, but my teapot will always be reflecting like a mirror, like metals. Was that clear or not yet? We are all waiting. Perfect! So, this is last thing for today. It has been a pleasure. Next week also remember me at the beginning maybe to show you how to import 3D objects, because if not it is highly possible that I will forget. But for now I have to stop it and make my next class. So for now, bye everyone. It has been a pleasure.